Good evening and welcome to the Legion Cantina. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the most fun units to use in Star Wars Legion, and then I'm also going to be giving a bit of an update on the channel and kind of asking you guys where you think we should be going next. But yeah, first and foremost, we're going to talk about what I think are the sort of top 5 most fun units to use in Star Wars Legion. Just want to make a note on this. It's not units that are necessarily the most competitively viable. There are definitely some units that are competitively viable in this list. These are just the units that are really satisfying to use when they go well. So actually some of them I would say are definitely not competitive, and maybe some of the joy comes from trying to take these units that maybe have quite severe weaknesses and making them feel sort of really competitive and strong sometimes in game. They also might be units that, can have a huge impact on a game or feel very powerful. So spoilers that there are going to be some quite expensive units in this list as well. But yeah, moving into the first one, and actually this one is a complete cheat, and fortunately this is my own list, because if anybody else was here, they'd be asking me what the hell I was doing. But this is any units with teamwork. And the reason sort of this section is in here is because there is just something about the teamwork keyword and kind of sharing those tokens around and sort of thinking of combos and ways to get more tokens, and then how you're going to use those tokens and how they can impact the game and stuff like that, that just feels really satisfying to me. And so this would be, I've put Leia on this one for obviously that teamwork you can get with Wicket. Then there's Han and Chewie, K2 and Cassian. You can also get teamwork through Sabine and Ahsoka's command cards. There's also one with Jin as well. You could also include Fifth Brother and Seventh Sister on here as well, because they have their kind of reversed token thing, which is quite interesting. But yeah, it's just something about those combos that feels really good. And I think particularly in this list, I'm picking out Leia because of that exemplar. And there's just something about setting up all those tokens that just feels really satisfying. And because it's only range 2, you really have to kind of think ahead about where stuff's going to be and where you want those tokens to be. Are you going to be able to, get those tokens into the next turn, or are you giving up that teamwork to maybe take a better position? It is just really satisfying. So yeah, I'm including this one here. It's a bit of a cheaty one, but yeah, just the general idea of kind of the teamwork keyword I think is just super fun in game. Moving on to the next one, and I did mention there would be some not particularly competitive units in here. We're going to be talking about Jyn Erso. Now, Jyn is a really interesting case. She's a sort of cheap-ish operative in Rebels. The sort of only cheaper option really is this sort of customizable operative, who generally comes in about 10 or 15 points cheaper. Generally, you're going to be taking something in her command slot, so she's around 80 points. And Jin's whole gimmick is basically that she has disengage, independent move, agile, and nimble. So you put all that together, and essentially what the dream is that you kind of bounce in between units, and you're able to make use of your dodges to hopefully you're surviving kind of weak attacks from units that aren't supposed to be in melee. And combined with her infiltrate ability, you can really cover some really decent distance. There's no reason by sort of the start of turn 2 why you can't be pushing well into your opponent's area. And where Jin's niche, in my experience at least, is getting past that kind of initial wave. So I don't know, let's say you're playing Gar, for instance. It would be actually moving sort of past the Arcs and Anakin, for instance, if they were running those big threats, and sort of getting into the units that sit further back. So I'm thinking ARFs or Clone Marksman or something like that, units that aren't usually meant to be in melee. And that's where she can be really effective in sort of covering that distance. The downside to all of this is that she has 5 white surging health, and without her dodges, and especially the independent move and the agile is nice because it gets you a dodge ready to go, but that's only 1. And as soon as you're taking hits of maybe 4 or 5 or something, suddenly that dodge isn't super relevant. So you really have to pick your fights very carefully. But what I have mentioned here is that one of Jin's great abilities, because of her disengage, is that you can move into a unit that maybe is contesting a POI, but if they have one sort of trooper who is outside of that kind of 1/2 range, you can effectively drag that unit out of scoring, and it would mean they wouldn't be able to contest the POI. So if you have, I don't know, some ARFs, for instance, who've activated and shot something at the back, and then they're contesting a POI, you could move into them, drag them off the objective, and then move back out and contest the POI yourself. And Thanks to that independent move and the disengage and stuff, it just gives you so much flexibility to kind of pick and choose where you want to be. So Jin is super satisfying to use when you use her well. I have really struggled to use her well, but there have just been like moments where I was like, oh, that was really good, that was really satisfying. But there's also moments where she gets caught by like any unit that's meant to be in melee and she gets obliterated in one turn. So it's definitely kind of riding that really narrow line. But yeah, she is super fun to use. Next unit is going to be Anakin Skywalker, and talked about him before, talked about him in the melee Force user tier list, and going to quickly run through him again now and why I think he's so satisfying. Basically, Anakin is just Vader, but not quite. He doesn't quite have the highs that Vader does. He's extremely close, and I think in some situations he can be arguably even better, especially if you can get tenacity proccing. But essentially, what he offers is he is normally putting out kind of 4.5 PS3 with his lightsaber. If you can get tenacity, you go above 5, which is really nice. The charge, obviously, is really useful for a Force user. His Gemstone Mastery means that if somebody attacks you and they blank on even one of their dice while you're in melee, they take a wound, and that's just a really nice deterrent to have. Like, if you're going up against, I don't know, a Force user that throws like loads of maybe slightly lower quality dice in melee, like, I don't know, Grievous, Maul or something, where they might have a few misses in there, this can just be a really nice deterrent to have. And then Tempted as well is a bit of a weird one because it's up to your opponent as to when it triggers, which means that as long as they're kind of anticipating Tempted triggering, they can normally negate it a little bit. But even if Tempted just gives you an extra speed 2 move or something, that can also be really nice. So yeah, he just offers so much damage, and I've mentioned his 1 pip here, like the ability to get that free jump and that free attack is just like a bonkers combination to have access to, and he just feels like so impactful and damaging when he's on the board, and the work he can put in is absolutely crazy. I will say his 6 health is a little bit sketchy. It's not on kind of the level of like some of the even more expensive Force users, like, you know, a Vader or a Luke, for instance, who do have just that extra little bit of survivability. Like, that 6 health is fine, but like one bad defense roll and suddenly you're looking really sketchy. Like, I think, yeah, just those extra wounds are really impactful. Yeah, I've put here at the bottom, like, he tends to burn brightly, but also quite quickly. Like, I think, depending on if you're divulging his 1 pip, he could easily be in melee on, like, turn 2, turn 3, like, chopping stuff up, especially if you got the burst of speed and the 1 pip and stuff like that. Like, you could very easily be getting 2 attacks off. But then after that, especially if you've dived like well ahead of your army, which can sometimes happen. Obviously, ideally you wouldn't do it, and I think there are combos where like you bring arcs with him to maybe provide a bit of protection from other scary units that might be around to attack him. But after that, he just doesn't maybe have like as much of a box of tricks as I've mentioned, Luke and Vader. So he is really strong. I find like the main satisfaction just comes from the amount and the consistency of the damage he can put out. Like, Vader or Anakin into any kind of red save army just feels so good. And I think Anakin is one of the few units where if he gets caught up with Bad Batch, he might actually have a shot of killing them. Like, he can so easily put, you know, like 4 wounds into Bad Batch, for instance, with that 4 PS3 that he's normally throwing out. Like, even though they have impervious, actually making enough of those saves to negate it is quite challenging. So puts in crazy work, and yeah, he is really fun to have access to. The second from the top is going to be Commander Vader. He just is him. Like, he is the definition of like a main character in Star Wars Legion. Most Empire lists with Vader in will make Vader the star of the show, and normally he's coming in probably around 200, and then if you push him, you know, with Force push and stuff, you can go up to like 230 pretty easily. And at that point, you are kind of pinning a lot of your hopes on him, because also his command cards are really good, so you're probably going to bring a lot of those. And the beauty of his command cards is they offer you just so many different options. And he has 1 pip, he has versatile 1 pips, he has, you know, okay 2 pips, and his 3 pip, like, one of his three pips is arguably the best command card in the game. In Darkness Descends, like the ability to give Vader infiltrate by itself is game breaking. And then, if you're feeling a bit more sort of passive, you can take the Reliable 2, which is also great on Vader because he doesn't surge either way. And then his sort of Courage Bubble 3 pip is also a really big deal as well. Couple that with the fact that he can offer infinite courage, and because he's a commander, he can give that to sort of surrounding Empire units. Is just crazy. Like, not having any of your units panic is a huge deal. It makes it so much easier to score objectives. And it also means that Vader is guaranteed to be able to, have his two actions. Like, there's nothing they can really do to stop him, which just feels great. Yeah, and his damage also is maybe slightly better than Anakin's, but they're very similar. Like, Anakin's surge to crit kind of makes up for a bit of the consistency that Vader loses as a result of not having access to those surges. He has Relentless, so you can bring Saber Throw. That's a really nice combo to have as well. Yeah, he's difficult to use like super well. I think a lot of the sort of more competitive Empire lists, at least that I've seen, maybe more last year. I think there's been more of maybe of a shift to Remnant kind of recently, but Vader was kind of the main character of a lot of those, and some people had clearly put a lot of time and a lot of reps into getting good at Vader, and witnessing the way they were using him and the kind of space he creates on the board is just wild. So yeah, he feels great. But yeah, his only weakness is his speed one. I would say that apart from that, he can just do it all. And you really need to time sort of and think about where Vader is going to end up and which area of the board you kind of want to control. Because once you commit into an area with Vader, it's like your opponent's probably going to like delta split and just leave that area alone. And then you just have to make sure that you can still kind of get your actions off with Vader and do what you want to do. But as I've said at the bottom here, I think he has like the most presence of any unit in Star Wars Legion. Like, as soon as you're facing your opponent and they put Vader out on the other side, you're like, right, okay, that is something I have to deal with this game, and I really have to plan around. And I don't think any other unit of the game quite matches that kind of level of impact and feeling on the board as Vader does. But he's not the most fun. In fact, the most fun, and this is objective, remember, not subjective. Just kidding. My favorite unit in the game is Operative Luke. He is the most difficult unit in the game to tie down and to stop doing what he wants to do. He has disengage, and all the same stuff I said for Jin applies to Operative Luke as well, except Operative Luke has more to offer. He has the charge, he has the immune melee pierce, he has the master of the force, he has a lightsaber. He just does so much more. And yes, he's expensive. He's 165 points, which is a lot. And you really have to get a lot from Luke to justify him. I'm of the opinion you need to bring force push. I don't think his damage is enough. I think you need that force push to manipulate objectives in a way that he can't do with his damage by himself. So yeah, I'm a force push believer. Generally, I'd bring burst of speed and then either clairvoyance or mind trick. I'm personally a bit of a clairvoyance believer. I think if you're tying this many points into a unit, you really need that kind of reassurance that you're not going to have that one terrible defense roll that just wrecks your game. So I think having clairvoyance on Luke is a really nice option to have. And then personally, I'd bring Into the Fray just to keep him alive. You can bring Tenacity or Hunter if you want to, but yeah, personally, I'd just bring Into the Fray and give yourself that extra chance of survival. His command cards are pretty solid, not on Vader's level. Vader's are, I think, by far the best command cards in the game. I think Son of Skywalker is a pretty classic one to bring along. I'm not really a huge fan of You Serve Your Master Well, although with mega fleets, maybe there's something there. Like, I think it's a tricky one to include because generally, if you're bringing mega fleets, you're probably then bringing Lando as well, which means then you're probably bringing his like divulge one pip, which means you then have to choose between Son of Skywalker and You Serve Your Master Well. And personally, I pick Son of Skywalker, but I think there is a space for You Serve Your Master Well if you want it. My Allies the Force is fine. It's pretty generic, and you can bring it over just the basic command cards if you really want to. But yeah, it's okay. Full of surprises. I generally leave at home. I mean, it's okay. At least it gives Luke an order and gives him a dodge, a bit more survivability, etc. So it is a decent one to have, but I just don't think it's probably worth bringing. And then Return of the Jedi is very meh. I would leave at home. But I Am a Jedi, as I've said here. I think a well-timed I'm a Jedi is probably the best feeling in Legion for me. I think like if you are able to get Luke into a position where you can just stop your opponent being able to do like what they are planning to do and then just drop that command card, it just feels so good. And Luke can still do so much work without attacking. Like he has, as I mentioned earlier with Jin and the sort of the disengage combo, like he can move and then drag maybe a unit off an objective and then force push another unit off and then go and score himself. So even if he's not attacking, he can probably drag 2 units off an objective and then still contest it himself. Like he is just such a box of tricks, and he is tricky to use, and there will be times when you just roll badly with him. Like his attack pool is so inconsistent. It's that 7 black that sometimes you'll pull kind of average 5 PS2, which you're supposed to get, and sometimes you'll roll like 3 or 2 PS2, and which isn't like catastrophic, but just doesn't feel like it. And I think he does definitely lose out in the damage stakes, but I think his objective play with that disengage just is so good to have. So he's really satisfying to use, and he's not like the most meta, especially in like the Rebel Optive slot, which is crazy competitive. I still think Bad Batch and Din are better than Op Luke, but I just have a ton of fun playing Op Luke every time I do. And would I take him to a super competitive tournament? Probably not, because it feels like you're putting a lot of your eggs in one basket. But for like pickup games and stuff like that, I think he is super fun. So yeah, let me know in the comments below which you think are like the most fun units to use in Star Wars Legion. I'll be really interested to hear like what people say. Like you can see kind of my bias coming in here. Like I've mentioned a lot of Rebel stuff because I find the Rebel playstyle very satisfying and I really enjoy it. But I could definitely, having splashed into a bit of Republic and Empire, my games with Vader and with Anakin have also been super fun. And that like power trip of just having all this damage and those cool command cards ready to go does just feel super satisfying. But yeah, moving into the second half of the video where we're talking about a little bit of a channel update. And this is quite an interesting one to talk about. And I'm not quite sure. I'm definitely going to have multiple shots at this video because just trying to sort of describe what I'm trying to describe will be quite interesting. But essentially, when I started the channel, I had no real idea of what was going to happen. I had like certain goals in my head of like what I wanted to achieve, and the channel is way beyond what I had kind of anticipated at the beginning. Those really being, and I think as soon as I hit like 1,000 subscribers, I was a bit sort of like, okay, right, what's happening? Like, what are we doing? So I basically in my head put a goal down of like, when I hit 2,500 subscribers, I'm going to start to think about like what I want the channel to be. Because I've been doing this for over a year now, and I think I'm like kind of now committed to it, and I really do enjoy like making content, stuff like that. And I'm really pleased with like the content I've made so far. I think most of my videos stand up really well, with a couple of exceptions that maybe haven't aged super well. But I think on the whole, I do kind of produce content that I hope is enjoyed by the community. But there are things I want to have a go at doing within the context of like content creation for Legion that unfortunately I just don't have the sort of capacity to do right now. And sort of the main ones I'm looking at are bat reps, kind of like tactical guides, things like that, and then sort of how to use sort of tutorials for individual units. And I can't make those because I sort of don't have like my own space where I can, make videos and record things like that. So the only place I could kind of go and do them would be like local game stores and things like that. There is also the question of like time. So content creation in its current form for me isn't too onerous. I think it generally is about like an evening or so a week that I'll give up over to making videos, making a short if I want to, and then making slides, etc., and things like that. Recording bat reps and sort of tactical guides would be a step up in terms of the time I'm having to dedicate to making those things. And another aspect is that I want to be able to take the time to add additional things to the bat reps. So, for instance, one idea I had was that sort of in post and during the editing process, I could kind of pause the video, go through what my kind of thoughts were at each point during the game, what my plan is, and maybe why I'm taking like certain key actions with different units. I just think things like that as part of a bat rep could be really useful, because I think often during a bat rep, you kind of see people taking actions and doing things, but maybe there isn't that time to kind of pause and reflect on why a certain action is being performed over, different actions, and why you're prioritizing different command cards and different orders and things like that. So I think the opportunity to take that time to really go into more depth with the bat reps would be super interesting. So yeah, again, if that's something you think you would be interested in, let me know in the comments below. In order to dedicate that time to making that kind of content, I would need to take effectively time away from my regular job in order to start making those videos. And currently, the sort of money I'm getting from YouTube isn't going to cover doing that stuff. It's not like a million miles away, and that's sort of what this video is kind of about, but it covers sort of, I'd say, about half to maybe like 2/3 of what I need realistically to kind of take time off work to have a go at making the videos I want to make. So with that in mind, I think it's kind of reached a kind of point where there's two paths I can see for the channel going forward. Path number one is basically I remain in the sort of position I am at the moment, where I'm making sort of hypothetical videos, is the way I describe it. So it's a lot of like theory crafting, talk about my opinions on things, talking about, my experience at tournaments, maybe tier lists, things like that. Things that I don't need to be physically recording myself playing the game to do. And if that's the sort of position I end up in, then absolutely happy with that. I think I'm really happy to make the videos I've got. I've got plenty of ideas for content I can talk about. There's loads of stuff to talk about with Legion, so I think that's absolutely fine. But option two, which is kind of what this video is about, is if I'm going to make these things, I would realistically need an additional source of income beyond what YouTube currently offers, and that would be from either Patreon or from YouTube membership. And before I kind of threw this out as an idea, I thought I would just mention it to to you guys, to the subscribers, and see what people think. Like, I am aware that lots of other channels have Patreons, YouTube membership programs, things like that, and I think I could definitely see a way it could work. So basically what I have in mind would be a sort of classic 2-tier Patreon system, where so tier one would be you kind of vote in the polls and things like that for the armies that maybe could go into bat reps and then tactical guides and things like that. And then tier two, which would probably be slightly more expensive, would just be you actually suggest lists, you suggest armies and things like that, and then maybe you have some discussion on which armies could work well in combination with each other and what you guys want to see. So I don't think either of them would be particularly expensive. Like, I'm thinking like $3-5, something like that, like nothing too crazy. And I think it could work fairly well. I have no idea how much take up there would be on that kind of thing, which again is what this video is about. So genuinely do just let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, I am kind of happy with either path, and I just wanted to sort of use this video as a space to talk about my thoughts on this one and sort of what you guys think about that. So pop it in the comments. I will also be doing a poll with a couple of options. So those options are going to be stay as is. The others will be you sort of support the idea of a Patreon, but you probably wouldn't support it yourself. And then it will be you support the idea of a Patreon and you would be willing to kind of be part of that Patreon yourself. So yeah, we really need to see what people say, and I am really happy with the state of the channel right now, and just excited to see like what comes next, basically. So yeah, let me know what you think, and thank you so much for liking, subscribing, etc. I think it's something I am very grateful for, is that actually, with the exception of a couple of very sort of minor things, actually all my interactions with the community have been really positive, and I think there are some really nice moments of like people explaining rules to other people and things like that in the comments, which is great to see. Yeah, I am just really pleased. So like, subscribe, etc. Although I imagine if you've got this far, you probably are liked and subscribed, but it can never hurt. And yeah, excited to see where we go next.